Welcome back to another edition of Gen Sports Corner. Hey, we got divisional football coming up, man. Listen, a big upset last night. Obviously, Commanders beat the Lions in what in Detroit, man. That was such an upset. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Um, as well as the Chiefs win over the Texans, and then today, obviously, you have the Bills and the Ravens playing, and then the Eagles. Um, Eagles are playing at 4:30 today against the Rams at home. Might have blustery conditions with the snow. It's predicted to have about 3 to 5 inches, so we'll see how much snow falls and how that affects the game. But before I get into it, make sure you like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, genmusic856.com, so you know every time I drop a video. And without further ado, let's talk about this Eagles game coming up, this divisional round matchup. A lot of talk last week about the Packers game, the win, and whether the Eagles had loose ends to tie up. People were making a lot about Jalen Hurts and the passing game, or in their opinion, lack thereof. Um, there's some relevance to what's been said, and I think some things are taken out of context or blown out of proportion, if you will. But coming into this game, you have a Rams team that has been on a little bit of a roll going into the playoffs, and they really did a great job last week in their game, especially with play action. The Vikings had no answer for play action from Matt Stafford, and from what I've been reading, he's one of the best, if not the best, in the league off play action, and especially recently. So once they run play action to Kyron off that halfback dive, and then they run play action and get Nacua in space, he's really tough to deal with. And obviously, even though Kupp has been up and down this year and maybe has seemed like he might have lost a step, he's still very dangerous in those play action scenarios. So and you look at this Rams offense, they definitely have been doing some good things since the beginning of the season. And then defensively, they've picked it up. The pass rush has picked it up. Burks, their rookie, he's been a revelation for them. He might end up winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. So he's been that good as a pass rusher. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the different aspects of this game, and then I'll give my prediction. So going into this game, the Eagles offense, the ground game, that's where it's at. That's where it's at. That's where it's at. Last game, we had 255 yards on the ground from Saquon Barkley and 2 touchdowns, including a 72-yard touchdown near the end of the game that really just put icing on the cake. And I don't know how they do anything to change that. Now, they've gotten better against the run, but they still don't do great in terms of limiting yards after contact. They did a good job against some guys like Kenneth Walker, the third, who plays for the Seahawks, and maybe 1 or 2 other guys, but they're still susceptible to the run game, and that's what we do. Right now, we're right behind the Ravens in terms of running efficiency. So this year we ran for 3,048 yards as a club. That's 6th most in NFL history, by the way. And then we finished 2nd in rushing yards behind Baltimore, who had 187.6 rushing yards a game. We had 179.3 rushing yards a game. And we're also the 2nd team in NFL history to rush for 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. So, obviously the tush push plays a lot into that, but we're getting down to the goal line because we're so good at running the ball. So it's a moot point. So I just don't know how the Rams are going to have an answer for that. And then in the passing game, there is their front four, and then there's not any superstars beyond that. Long gone are the days of Jalen Ramsey. So they have good guys. They have solid guys in the secondary, but if you get them isolated on an island and that pass rush doesn't get home, it's going to be a problem. And then you have that pass rush going against, I would say, the best offensive line in football right now. So as per PFF, Pro Football Focus, the Eagles have 2 of the best tackles in the game. So in terms of pass blocking, Mailata grades out at a 96.1 PFF grade, and Lane Johnson grades out at an 85.4 PFF grade, and that's good for first for Mailata amongst tackles, and then seventh amongst tackles for Lane Johnson. So they're willing to put both of them on an island and say beat us out there, and that's a tough task. So where you really want to go at is probably Mekhi Becton or Cam Jurgens, and they only moved Jared Verse inside, I think, 5 times this year, and 3 of those snaps were against the Eagles. So they obviously see the same thing that me and many other people who are analyzing the tape and the stats see. So let's see how they try to move Jared Verse, throughout that line and try to find one-on-one matchups that are advantageous. But a way to beat that is to just run the rock, and you get rid of that just like that. So they have a very good pass rush, but they are in a bit of a conundrum because this is not the Vikings offensive line. You dig? So that's the way I see things playing out offensively, because AJ Brown, maybe he has an issue with his knee, but you have another receiver named Devontae Smith, and then you have Dallas Goedert, who just had the beast mode earthquake run last week, where he did a couple of really disrespectful stiff arms to homeboy. So like they have options in the passing game. So I just don't really know how this Rams defense stops the Eagles unless they get away from the run game. Just stick with the run game, especially if it snows. You don't have as much traction as a defensive lineman, and that's what those offensive linemen live for. I'm able to, 1, put hands on you, and 2, put hands on you and push you back when you don't really have as much leverage because the ground isn't necessarily suitable for you. I'm applying force. It's hard for you to stop force on shaky ground. That's an advantage for the Eagles, and vice versa for the Rams, which I'll get to. But I just don't see how they stop this run game, and then everything's going to work off of that. And then you flip to the other side of the ball and look defensively at the Eagles, and this is the first defense, I think, in NFL history to go from 22nd or worst to first overnight, 1 year's time. Has never happened. I don't know if that will happen again. I think we were 29th in points per game allowed last year, and then this year we are first all of a sudden, after a little bit of a slow start in the first couple weeks. So that just shows you how good this defense got in a short amount of time. And a big part of that is Mr. 3-3 Cooper DeJean, man. He is one of the best cover corners in man coverage in the league right now. And that is one of the other matchup in this game between him and Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp when he put Kupp into the slot. That is the matchup. And we saw it last time. Coop could not get open, man. They tried that out route. I think it was a cut in, and then he went and changed direction and went to the sideline, and he couldn't shake Coop. Coop on Coop. You know what I'm saying? Like Coop on Coop crying. He couldn't shake him, man. And that's going to be the matchup, because especially if they run play action and he can't get separation, or Nacua can't get separation consistently, that's going to be an issue for them. Right now, the way you attack this Eagles defense is you go with your run game through Kyron Williams. And you have to hope that Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are not on one today. Because if they are, even with the conditions, and you're not able to grind out some long drives and keep the Eagles offense off the field from doing the same thing to you, if the Eagles are able to eat up clock and just wear your defense down, like wear that line down, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? So, I think the third matchup that I'm interested in is, what do they do without Nakobe Dean? You have Zach Baum. With Dean out, how do you adjust to that loss? Are you able to still be disciplined on play action? We know Baum's going to be where he's supposed to be at. Is everybody else going to be? Is our other nickel linebacker, his name is eluding me, because he's relatively new in the lineup, but is he going to be disciplined and stay in his zone? If he's in a hook zone over the middle of the field, is he going to drop back 5 yards, or is he going to come up too soon with play action and vacate a spot in the zone? Like, these are the little things that matter, especially against a team that's going to be depending upon play action. So that's the third matchup. First matchup was Jared versus on that defensive line. Second matchup was Cooper DeJean against their wide receivers Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And then third matchup, um, you know, is our linebacker that's out. So like these are the three that stand out to me. If the Rams are not able to win that matchup with Cooper DeJean specifically, and Jared Verse moving him around the line to try to get pressure, if they lose on one of those two, they're in a lot of trouble. Because if you lose the matchup with Jared Verse against one of the guards or one of the centers, Jurgens, Becton, or Dickerson, then you have no pass rush. So now we can run the ball on you, and you can't even stop us if you want to pass it, and we can just grind out these 7-8 minute drives and just absolutely eat up time, prevent you from getting opportunities on offense, and wear your defense out. Conversely, you look at Cooper DeJean against the receivers. If they are not able to get separation and be able to win on play action, especially out the slot with Cooper Kupp or Nacua, if they decide to move him into the slot from time to time, they are in big trouble. Because then that too high safety look, that works perfectly. You can sit, especially even if they're running, you have to make sure you're getting big yardage all the time. And even if they're coming up to in play action, if the coverage is so tight, the Eagles can get away with bringing an extra guy in the box from time to time, or getting undisciplined here and there, which they don't really do, which is refreshing compared to what we've seen in the past. So to me, it really comes down to the run game, to try to get enough big runs, enough big chunk plays where you'll have Cooper DeJean jump out of position, or have our backup linebacker jump out of position and free up a zone if we're playing cover 3 or cover 2, for example. Let's say he's in the hook zone over the middle of the field and he vacates it because he's undisciplined. But without that run game, I just they did solid last game. He had 4.5 yards a carry, but he didn't go buck wild. They're going to need more than that, because even though the end score was 37-20, the game was not that close. It was really like 30-14, and then Saquon got the touchdown, and then they got a garbage time touchdown on offense for the Rams right at the end. But it was really a 30-14 game, and we just sucked the life out of them. Pause. And got them up out of here. But yeah, so I think that this Rams team is better than they were before, and I think they're coming into the playoffs with momentum. But I still think that they're going to have an issue stopping this Eagles defensive line unless they really get their run game going early and get an early lead. Because then you can use the weather conditions to your advantage. But so that for that reason, I have the Eagles winning this game by about a touchdown. None of these scores are put into cement, but maybe like 30-23. 27-20. Both offenses are moving with momentum. Maybe there will be a little bit lower of a score because of the elements, but I could see it being like a 7-point game. But I think that the Rams, they're going to need to make some splash plays to beat this defense, and this defense has not shown the propensity to do that all year, outside of maybe that first game against Green Bay where they were having miscommunications, a la Jaden Reed. But we see what happened to them last week as well, correct? So that's my prediction. Let me know what you guys think about that. And then briefly before I end this off, I want to go over the games that already happened. So obviously the one between the Chiefs and the Texans. Let's do that first before we get to the upset. Before I get into that, shout out Opposing Perspectives podcast. Appreciate the love. Doing great things over there. Go check them out if you haven't, and subscribe, because if you're not, you're missing out. But the game yesterday between the Texans and the Chiefs, a lot of complaints about the referees, but you're going to get that when the Chiefs are playing. You can either confirm or deny, or say that they're lying or telling the truth. A flag may come out of nowhere, who knows. But regardless, nobody expected the Texans to win. I certainly did not. I didn't really do a reaction on it yesterday because I thought it was a foregone conclusion, and they're good. They're good. Like, you have a big three there with C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, and then Nico Collins, but they're so inconsistent on the offensive line. They can't really get any time in the passing game, and they C.J. Stroud, even when he does have time, he's just been inconsistent. There's no getting around it, and sometimes that happens to second year quarterbacks. You know, they got tape on you after you took the league by storm, and they had answers for you this year. Now, going into year three, you did well enough to get to the playoffs, but some of the things that they made to counter what you were doing worked. So now you got to go out and make the adjustments in the offseason. Because that Chiefs defense, they have a good secondary, and then you obviously have Chris Jones, perennial All-Pro, in the middle of that line, just wrecking shop, man. And they didn't really, there wasn't nothing they were going to do against Chris Jones. So they hung around for a little bit, and then the game played out the way we thought it was, and the Chiefs pulled away. And Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce again. They could not stop that man. That man was just doing whatever the F he wanted to the whole game. Catching the ball and yards after catch, crazy. Yak was crazy. So that was that game. So you had the Chiefs moving on. And then you had the other game. Now this was the upset, between the Commanders and the Lions, because the Lions, number 1 seed, 15 wins, really physical squad that will just run the ball over you, through you, around you, whatever way you want it. And defensively, outside of the injuries, they're still a solid unit, But going into this game, I'm like, man, they're banged up. I thought they would win. I just thought that it was a coin flip because they were so banged up on the defensive end. And I thought that the Commanders, everybody's talking about they were a young team, but as I said in my last prediction video, Jaden Daniels is special. He has that it factor, like Mike Vick had in his rookie season. He has the Lamar Jackson factor, and he can just make a play out of nothing. Even from an Eagles fan's perspective, going back to the McNabb days, we went further in the playoffs in that second year than we should have, strictly off of Donovan McNabb's running ability, and the ability to make something crazy happen when everything else failed on the play. Like, you can't game plan for that. As much as you try, you cannot simulate that. You can try to mimic it, but like, it's different when you get on that field, on that gridiron. So, I thought that it would be a close game because I had a lot of confidence in the Commanders' offense to be able to do work against that Lions defense being banged up. And then the Lions offense, the Commanders defense is better than the Lions defense. So I thought they would make it tougher on that Lions offense, especially without David Montgomery, their power back. So I thought that that's why it would be a very even game, but I did not see them. They had control at the beginning. Going into the second quarter, it looked like they had their bearings about them, even though the Commanders there were mistakes on both sides early on. But as the game wore on, man, like the Commanders wanted it more. They were more physical. They were at their spots more. They were just more aware, and they seized the moment, man. And when it was time to make a big play, Jaden Daniels did. Terry McLaurin did. Jared Goff and St. Brown did not. You know what I'm saying? So that was really what it came down to. And that Commanders defense was just going to have an easier time with the Lions offense instead of vice versa. So, man, they're stunned up there. And there's a lot of Packers fans talking today about how they're, happy that the Lions are going home because they got so obnoxious early on. But, I wanted the Lions to move on. They never won a Super Bowl. So if the Eagles didn't go, if the Eagles don't go, that's the team I would want to see. But, man, they got surprised. So if the Eagles move on, we will be playing the Commanders. And that is going to be a hell of a trilogy for the year, especially after the last game when Hurts got injured. So the storylines lining up, man. Let me know what you guys think about that. And obviously the other game tonight between the Bills and the Ravens, I like both teams. Both teams were strong this year. Obviously, Lamar Jackson in the MVP running, as a strong candidate, along with Josh Allen and all them, and Mahomes. And then, you had Derrick Henry, who I don't know why people thought he was going to fall off because that's crazy. And he went off this year, second most rushing yards outside of Saquon Barkley. And then you look at the Bills. Look, they have nobody on offense. Like Shakir, he's a good receiver, but he's not what Stephon Diggs was. But somehow Josh Allen has found a way to turn that team into some semblance of the Bills of the 90s, where they're just like running gun. He runs around for a little bit and just makes something happen because they have a really, really high level running back in James Cook to allow them to do that. He's not Thurman Thomas, but he's certainly their version of it right now. And they have something special going on up there. And that defense, especially if they're playing in Buffalo or wherever, it don't really matter. They come to play, man. So for me, I think that the Bills' defense is clearly better than the Ravens' defense. And the Ravens' offense, while dynamic, is not necessarily any more dynamic than the Bills' offense. They bring the same elements. Josh Allen isn't as fast as Lamar Jackson, obviously, but when Josh Allen gets in the open field, it's a nightmare. So I just think that he's more disciplined as a passer. He's less prone to turn the ball over in the ways that Lamar will, or less likely to get confused by exotic coverages, which the Bills can show, especially under Sean McDermott. He's a defensive mastermind. He comes from the school of Jim Johnson. Versus the Ravens defense, they've gotten more consistent in the past couple games, but this wasn't a great year for them. So I just feel more confident in the Bills right now. Well, let me know what you guys think about that one. And before I end this off, I want to talk about the comments here real quick. And then the comments from Jared Verse. I actually forgot about to mention that. Christian, my favorite Cowgirls fan, says FOH, F out of here. And look, it's good to see you here, man. I'm glad to see you in the new year, healthy and still being delusional. Nothing but love, man. You know that, brother. And then OPP podcast says Texans blew that game. Facts. I mean, the Texans blew that game like they should have against the Chargers. The Chargers just didn't want to win the game. But this is 2 straight weeks that they just, like I said, you don't know what you're going to get with them. It's either Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. And they were Mr. Hyde for 2 straight weeks. They just paid for it this week. And then Ryan, my co-host on the podcast often, he says 16 players on injured reserves caught up to the Lions. Absolutely. And, that was the concern coming into the game, and it ended up being their downfall. So, that is what it is. But last but not least, let's talk about Jared Verse saying how, I won't go into his comments, but I'll paraphrase. He does not like Eagles fans. They are off-putting to him. I'll put it like that. And then Saquon came out, I think Friday or something like that, and said it's probably not the smartest thing to say. This is his first year, so he doesn't really know how Philly gets. I mean, he's been here, but he doesn't know what Philly is like in the playoffs. And especially when we don't like you. We didn't know the Rams before. Like whether they're, I don't remember if it was home or away. It doesn't make a difference. If it's away, Eagles fans travel to the point that we take over that stadium anyway. So it's a home game either way you slice it this year. But you think that Eagles fans are bad now? Wait till you get into the stadium and they're actually every mistake you make, every wrong step that you take, every breath that's a little bit hesitant, like those little details, they're going to be on you, man. And I'm telling you, it's a different animal. You think until you actually go into the Terror Dome, and then the steel cage closes and you realize nobody can come in and save you. Your friends, your family, the other players on the sideline watching you on the field, they can't save you. Because especially once we start running the ball and putting that pressure on you. All right, man. So we will see how his comments age going into this game. But let me know what you guys think. And I hope that you're enjoying the games. If you're not an Eagles fan and your team's in the playoffs, if you didn't move on, it is what it is. On to next year and get better. And the ones that are moving on, hey, how far do you think you're going? Let me know what you guys think and catch you after the game. Peace.